Hi. We ready? Hi, I'm Leah Hunter, and I am sitting here with Margaret Francis, who is Senior Director of Product Management at Heroku, which is part of Salesforce, who at this very moment not only owns the cloud, but owns the world.
It looks like it's heading that way, doesn't it?
Mwahaha. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Sure. I'd like to talk a little bit about what Heroku is and does, first and foremost. We have a pretty technical audience, but breaking it down into reasonably human language.
Sure. I think Heroku has long been a favorite development platform for developers of all types, whether they're startup developers, whether they're developers working for a marketing organization, or even developers that are under the CIO in a major enterprise. But Heroku's brand has sort of long stood for being great for startup developers and people at hackathons who just need to stand up a mobile or a web app really quickly in the cloud. And over the past few years, Heroku's been evolving towards, I think, a more mature offering with a lot more products that are geared towards the developers and the engineers that really need to scale out applications in the cloud. So Heroku is a platform as a service that allows you to easily build and deploy applications for really developers at companies of any size.
Well, and I think that the reason that that is important is because a lot of the world is moving, to an entrepreneurship model, and there's a proliferation of startups, and there are all these people who need that kind of help who don't necessarily have the capabilities in-house. So you're saying it works both for large enterprise and for anybody.
It does, and I think it also particularly works well for companies that are not interested in building out their own DevOps capability. It's just not their core business to work on that at this time. So you see Heroku customers like an Upworthy, right, which has experienced tremendous growth in their viewership over the past 2 years or so. Having stood up all of their applications on Heroku, they now no longer need to sort of worry about the scaling aspect of their business, and they can focus on what makes them really unique, which is the content in the application itself.
Well, and part of the reason, just so everyone knows, part of the reason that I really particularly wanted to talk to Margaret is because I think that, not only was Heroku recently acquired by Salesforce and is it blowing up, but you have a unique position within the company. You have this beautiful ability to both speak engineering and speak marketing because of your background. And those are two very different languages. Can you speak to what it takes to bridge those worlds?
A little bit, and I think that I've been lucky in that, over the past decade or so, marketing has changed so much. It's changed out of all recognition due to changes in technology, and that's what the digital marketing workshop that we had here at South by yesterday was about. And yet, at the same time, technology has changed. I mean, it's a continued sort of push-pull. What can we do, and what should we do? What can we do, and what should we do? Where marketing and technology meet, and it does require a really interesting intersection between engineering and marketing to not only talk about it, but to think about the right products to bring to market. So, as an example with Heroku, I would say that one of the core use cases for standing up an application in the cloud is that you are a marketer and you want to create an experience for a consumer or a customer that is written in the language of your choice, Node, Ruby, whatever it might be. You actually are focused absolutely on creating a consumer experience. And the point of a product like Heroku, a platform like Heroku, is to make it incredibly easy to do that from a technology perspective, right? I simply create my project on Git and I deploy it out to Heroku. And if I'm Upworthy and I get 100 million visitors tomorrow, it's just going to scale with demand. So it's quite beautiful.
Well, and there was something beautiful in what you said because so I've been at a couple of different events recently. I was at an Intel Future of Wearables event, and that whole conversation was all about how consumer experience and focusing on what people need, whether those are the people in a company who are your developers or whether that's the end consumer. That's where everyone's focus should be because, making hardware or making software or making any kind of technology, a lot of people can do that well. What a lot of people cannot do is understand what users actually need.
Yes, and we are in the business as marketers of orchestrating an experience, and in the technology side of things, particularly when you're at a platform as a service company, you are really focused on the experience that developers have of the product, because they're the ones who are out helping to make those marketing experiences live. And so we all are involved in this sort of chain of trying to make things more interesting and easier and more enabled by core technologies over time. And I don't know if that's the right way to think about it, but that is exactly how it works. The developer creates the experience on Heroku, as an example, and someday you and I are sitting in a pavilion at South by using a mobile app that tells us where to find the next party, and that's exactly how it goes.
We don't do that.
No, we never party.
We've never done that. No, we weren't at the Driscoll last night at all.
No, not at all.
Okay, we also, speaking of the Driscoll, we had this great conversation. Margaret and I were roaming around with a crew of people, which is how she ended up here today. But we had a great conversation about women in technology. So if you were going to give a couple of pieces of advice to women who are here at South by, who are watching, who are trying to break into the technology field, look at her eyes. She's just like,
first of all,
what did you just ask me? What would you say?
I would be tremendously flattered that anyone who has seen me in the last 48 hours believes me capable of giving advice on really any front whatsoever. But I'll give it a shot anyway, just because as a woman and as a parent, this is not the easiest field to work in. And I'm not sure, let me put it this way, I think it's completely worth it. I feel like people are interested in tools, and it's our technology that separates us in some ways from other kinds of creatures that walk the earth. And so I can't think of a more exciting place to be. On a very tactical, pragmatic level, I think that any place you have a lot of homogeneity, you can suffer from groupthink. And technology can be like that in terms of the concentration of white and, to a lesser extent, Asian men. And I am more worried about how we make sure that we're not blindsided in this world, because we haven't figured out how to include a diversity of approaches and ways to think about things that are very often embodied by having people of different kinds, people of different class, people of different color or orientation around us. Anytime you have 10 of or 100 or 1,000 of exactly the same thing demographically, you are going to have, there's things you won't see and things you won't think and things you won't dream about for the future. So I love being a woman in tech. I think it's a fine place to be. And by and large, I worry more about the subtle bias than I ever worry about anything overt or damaging or anything like that. And I actually think that Salesforce is a great place to work, and Heroku is a great place to work for women or minorities of any type. And you can really see it in the way that, Mark Benioff lives his life and the causes that he chooses to espouse.
What do you mean by that? Like what?
I don't know if you saw recently, but Salesforce, as an example, often has events in Arizona. And when Arizona considered essentially the recent legislation, which would have allowed people to deny service to gay people on the basis of religious conviction, he basically came out and said, we're not going to be doing any business in Arizona. And that's exactly the kind of leader that you want to work for.
Okay, so that's one brilliant piece of advice. Choose your company and your leader well. If you want to break into technology, choose a woman friend. Tell me if I'm summarizing this correctly, but choose a woman minority friendly kind of environment.
I think that's excellent advice. I also think that it is excellent advice to always invest in yourself and your skills, and to try and figure out how to accurately benchmark yourself against your peers. Because what I often see women doing over and over again is undervaluing their contribution and not understanding how they truly compare. And that's a good thing in that it tends to drive them to acquire more skills. It's a bad thing in that they tend to be less confident than people who are similarly qualified. And it can really hold you back. Like you don't take the next assignment, you don't take the next gig, you don't take the leadership role, you don't take a chance or a risk because you feel like there's a skill or a capability that you're missing. Well, the guy next to you has that same gap. but he's the one who has been sort of trained to think that he can overcome it if he works hard enough. And sure enough, women can do that too. So.
And this is spoken by someone, you've been in tech in different capacities for a really long...
For well over a decade.
For a really long time,
yes,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
In a variety of founder, product manager, strategy type roles, really. And I also don't think that it's ever misplaced to learn to do something that requires critical thinking and mastery. And learning to be an engineer is a very worthwhile thing for really almost anyone in this world to do. Mm. And if I have one regret, it's that I don't have more of an engineering background than I do. But on the whole, I think it's working out all right.
And both of us have daughters that we're hoping to raise to love STEM, and engineering. So
absolutely. And
thank you.
I do think that living, having daughters and being a parent and thinking about the world that you want them to experience when they grow up is one of the most powerful reasons to stay at it.
Awesome. Thank you, Margaret.
Most
Appreciate
welcome.
it. Yay! All right.